Hello everyone, Don back with the next progress report on the War Corsair. Alright, yesterday and today I worked on getting everything back together. As you can see, the alternator's back in, the belt's on. I've got all these hoses all wire clamped up. Yesterday I did these four, these two. I did these today, so that's locked right onto that piece of tubing inside, so it won't, so it'll hold that from wiggling around. So them are all done. Again, this side's done. Oh, get this out of my way. Done all the way to this fitting, that fitting, and then the last thing is the hoses that have to come up from the radiators and come out here, which are these fittings. So this nut is on this side of the firewall. So when I do the radiators and the wings, it'll be wired all the way up into this, and then I can slide this whole system up through there without the nut, pass it through the firewall connections. Alright, let me grab the trouble light real quick. The junk light. Okay, you see I got those all done. I'm trying to get some light on the subject here. I got the one in the back you can see. Coming across from the other side back there. This one. I forgot to turn that off. Sorry about that. I was going to turn that off before I started this and forgot. So, you can see I've got this little hose up here done. I haven't done this one because to get it on here when it comes through the firewall, this has to be apart so I can slide it back to get it on. But that's the last one. These two are the last two for this once this radiator's done, and then just this one up here for this radiator. Everything else is done. I've got, as you can see, this one done. I'm going to try and do this one down here. This one is just a vent, external vent. I'm not really going to be able, I could probably just do a simple wrap around there with the wire twist pliers to do that one. Even this one. This one here is just sucking vents out of all. Since the engine blows the oil up into the tank, it exhausts the air, combustible gases out the bottom, but it also draws in some air out of here, so it helps pull and recirculate and reburn. The hose is all done, alternator's all in, everything's all wired up. And I also did the 4 oil lines, as you can see there. There's 2 there, and then the 2 here. 1 on each side. Everything's all done. So the only thing left to do is the 8 connections for each, or 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 for each radiator. So that's 8, and then these 4 firewalls. And I don't think there's much left. I've got I safety wired my screws that hold the carb in place. Safety wired the throttle cable in place. Had to pull the battery out in order to get the belt tensioner and all that in. That's all tightened up. Had to disconnect a couple fuel lines to work around. But as soon as I get these new radiator in, I can get those put together. The fittings came today, and then this fitting here. These ones are done as well. So I've got them all pretty much done. The only thing left is just the final connections for the radiator hoses. It looks like I'm going to need about 8 feet of that tubing. There's the cutoffs from all the safety wiring. Let's see. Here's the fittings. These are pretty chunky, but they're not too awful heavy. I mean, they're definitely heavier than aluminum. This one isn't the same style. I was expecting a machined square chunk of, I think their picture showed more of a billet chunk and then just machined down, but this is fine. These ones again will be on the bottom of the radiator, and this will be coming out the top. So I still got plenty of the wire left. I used the 041 thou on everything there. The computer is all back together, back up in its hole, and I just dropped the tank down in place. But as soon as these radiators are hooked up, it'll be ready to fire up again. Now I did get a tap today, so that's a 3/4 tap, and I tapped these fittings, and I just threw those plastic ones in because these came later. These didn't show up till like after 2 in the afternoon. And I went up this morning at 10 o'clock and got the tap, and then back here and tapped this. So I filled this with water, filled it with air. Right now the air, I let the air out of it. But it turns out there is a small leak on this one too now, because this welding with the low argon, when it doesn't weld right, it heats everything up and then everything just wants to go soft. And it went down underneath the bottom, because this is just a plain piece of aluminum. There's nothing on it, but that little tin aluminum pieces inside are still attached to the bottom of this. And I think what it was, the penetration got through and made a tiny little imperfection in there. This side, this was really hard to try and get welded shut. It was trying to make a pinhole that I couldn't close, so it took way more heat than it needed because of the argon. So this one is pretty much toast. I'm not even going to try and fix it. Stop leak might fix it, but this thing, when it was on the table before testing it, it fell off the table and landed on this and bent this all out of wall, but it doesn't leak. So, and then this is getting pretty beat up from in and out all the time when I first put it in. So basically I'm just going to buy 2 more. On eBay they're only $44 a piece, but right now I don't have the money to buy them. I got to get to work and go back to work tomorrow and get some money coming in. And so I'll get these probably ordered up end of the week, and then they won't be here till, like next week sometime. Then the argon can wait until next week when I work again next week to buy that, because I can't use it until I get these in, and it's going to take me at least a week or more before I have these in hand to chop them and modify them. And well, like I said, both the lines come out the top, so when one gets cut off, it has to be welded shut, and the hole has to be put in the opposite end. So like this, they got to be staggered. So, but essentially the bottom one is going to go in like this. So that's a nice short fitting. It's going to do me well for keeping the hose tight up against the bottom. And then of course the top one is no bigger than the plastic fitting I got in there now. This would be nice at a slight angle out and slight angle forward. So, but I'm going to make up some more bungs. Again, those were just made out of some 3/4. Turns out I had to take a 1/4 inch off of it anyway. It was too deep. It was going in and it was wanting to close off this first hole. So I shortened it up 1/4 inch, and then I left it like 1.5 inches wide. So I think it's a little bigger in diameter than I need. If I make it smaller, make it so it's maybe only a 1/16 inch smaller than this hole, it'll be easier to weld, and I'll get away from this shoulder. And once I get the argon, it should weld up fine, just like I did when I made my oil tanks. It always gives you a fit, and it doesn't like to sustain a nice steady arc. So here you can see the bushing was like 1.5 inches. So I'm going to close it down, make it smaller so it gives me more room around that seam right here on these ones. This is the only kind you can get. If you could find anything like this, they're going to be a couple $100. So I mean, they're nice. They have nice. I like that flat spot, but even this one, it gave me trouble mainly because of the argon. But this one has been beaten up. So I mean, these things hung off the airplane for years and kind of got kicked around. Surprised they didn't leak more than they did. So I got all my fittings. Just got to get a couple of these coming, and then I'll make up some new fittings. You can see how kind of thick that one is in there. It's only 1/2 inch deep. I think I've got some 1/2 inch material like this, or it may even, I could probably get away with 3/8 inch even. So, alright, I think that's all I did, other than, like I said, getting that computer put back into place. But I like the looks of these things. They're really nice how they connect up. Hardest part is keeping the damn wires, because you gotta run it around, loop through, run around a second time, and then they like to crisscross, and sometimes this one will crisscross over that one and vice versa, and they won't lay flat. They'll be crisscrossed underneath, and it's a hell of a thing to try and do. This one won't be had to do. This is just pull this out of the way. I got everything tied up a little better now. Air sensor, everything up here is done. So all I got to do is get some radiators back in there, and then it'll take a little bit to clean these up and rebuild up this shelf in here so it goes up and touches, because the hose will go in at a different point than where they did now. They'll go underneath here instead of through here, so that hole has to be closed off. And then I'm going to have to do something with trying to keep this This side is the hot side, so the air's got to go up in there. But even on the other side, looking down through the fuselage up here, there's still some air that can come up in around the radiator and go up in there, and then that can shoot down in and make its way into the cockpit. So you got to deal with some of that. All right, I think that's about all I got to report. I got pretty much most of these done. I mean, it took several hours to do all of them. Like I said, the hardest part is fighting with that wire to keep them from crossing over. I still want to put a drain on this, so if it pressurizes, it'll blow out the bottom just like the breather off the oil tank. And this thing, I need to take it apart. These edges here that were milled out for this slot, they're like razor blades. I mean, that's what it did to me there. And that's a scratch from a wire, from the safety wire. But I had all kinds of that. Thing's been slicing me up all the time, and I deburred it a little bit, but it's like a razor blade, and I don't know how it got that sharp because those end mills I used were really bad. I didn't even think it was going to work. This is actually just 1/2 inch 4130 chromoly tubing from my stash up there. Seen another guy use it. Instead of using a solid piece of stock and then drilling it, I had a piece of 1/2 inch that was perfect, and a 3/8 inch threaded rod just fit in there perfect. All I had to do was cut the slot, and then the cone is solid, and then I machined it down and made it a press fit, and then had to drill these 2 holes for the pins. But the thing works good, and I mean, you get a little better at it. I've done probably over 30 of them so far, and you think you get better at it, but it's still a lot of fiddling around to get them right, so they look neat and aren't crisscrossing. The crisscrossing is the worst part about it. I don't do them all by hand. I use these safety wire pliers to pull the wires through after I loop them around, pull them tight, kind of snug them up. So these get used a lot, and then once they're together, I grab both tails, pull on it, and then bend it up so it catches the loop at the start. And then I get the tool out, put it in there, spread them apart, and wind them up. So let's see, actually I got my alternator harness right here. Alternator wire harness. That can get plugged in. There, click. All it is a light, and what's the other one? You got field, which doesn't get used. Source, sense wire and light. So the sense wire goes back to the bus bar where the power goes into the airplane, because the voltage will show up lower there than out here. So all I gotta do is get these hoses in and done, and that'll be finished. I think that's gonna do her. Once I get the radiators in, like I say, the computer's all finished. All that's left is to wire up the light for the alternator. I still haven't really found a decent light to use on that. So, and once those are back in, get her filled back up with water, it'll be ready to fire up again. We'll see how it restarts after all this shenanigans. Alright, I guess that's going to do it. I'm going to keep this one a little short. Nothing else to report. I've got everything I need. I just got to get the radiators and get some more argon and cut up some more fittings. Alright everyone, I guess that's going to do her. As always, I appreciate everybody taking time to watch my videos. Feel free to leave any comments, questions, concerns. And don't be afraid to leave any comments. Appreciate them. So that's going to do her for this update, which I wasn't really expecting to do, but I got enough done. I figured I'll show you what I got. All right, that's going to do her, and I will be back most likely on Sunday. What I have ready then may or may not be reportable. There's not much I can do without the new radiators. So we'll see how it goes. All right, everybody, that's going to do her, and I will catch you guys again. Maybe Sunday I'll have something to put up. I know I won't have these ready. Alright, I'll cut her off there, and I will see you guys again most likely Sunday. So again, as always, thanks for watching everybody, and we'll see you then.